Hey everyone, Jacob here. Wanted to do a quick tutorial tonight on setting Atmosphere. This is super important, especially if you're a keyboard player. Padding underneath the pastor at the end of your service, leading into the song at the end of the service, whether it's an invitation song or whatever the case may be. So basically, what I usually start out doing is by fading in a really simple pad, usually something that is filtered down really low to start and kind of work it in underneath. So for something like this, I would do and usually you're just looking to do something super simple, usually like two notes. Like for instance here, I'm doing a B and an F sharp together, and maybe just go in between that and the suspended. Add in the E there every once in a while. And maybe drop down to the E flat in this case, which completes the chord. And I usually just like to work it in really gently underneath whoever's speaking. One thing to be super mindful of when you're doing this is to understand where your pastor's voice lies in the spectrum of EQ. So if he has a kind of mid-rangey voice, you want to make sure that you don't get into the mid-range of the keyboard. So you may want to be a little higher up, like up here doing something. Same kind of deal. If it's a super low voice, you can usually get away with being a little bit lower on the keyboard, like here. Maybe mix in a minor here and there. So you're just kind of working it in. And for this particular sound, I'm using two different pad sounds. One sound, which is the one I faded in first, was a sound that I created. And the second sound is actually from That Worship Sound. If you want to check them out, it's from the Omnisphere Worship Sounds pack. So definitely give that a try. So usually, after playing around with this a little bit and kind of, hanging out on just a few simple basic chords, I may mix in a little bit of piano. I'm using a plugin called Valhalla Shimmer on my piano sounds, which gives it a really big, fat, and open, spacey kind of sound. It's really useful when you're not trying to do something that sounds super organic. You want it to be kind of spacey and kind of in the distance, because you want to make sure your pastor's voice is foremost, the most heard thing. Front and foremost, the most heard thing, and that you're not getting in the way or stepping on what he's doing, what he's saying. Sometimes I just do something like that with it really verbed out. This is probably 90% reverb right now. And then usually, depending on the pastor, this is obviously this varies depending on how your pastor style of preaching is. But usually what I would do is start to open up this filter a little bit on this pad. This second pad is being controlled by the mod wheel here on the Akai. So I just gently start to open that up. one thing that I'll usually do is as it gets closer to wrapping up, and I can tell that he's about to wrap up or she's about to wrap up, that I'll start weaving in some of the melodies that are for the invitation song. So almost to start hinting at that this is where we're going. Especially if it's a song that people know that you've done with your church before. It seems to really help. And it helps the pastor know that it's time to, you know, put the icing on the cake, so to speak. So in this case, I'll start weaving in a little bit something here. So something like that, you just start weaving in the melody, especially if the next song coming up for Invitation has that kind of piano hook in it. You can kind of weave it into what you're doing. And just kind of get ready to move into that. That way, as soon as you launch into that song, whether you're running the click track or the drummer, if you have a click track, you're just already in it and you're already flowing in it. It makes for a really seamless transition doing that. But definitely don't feel like as soon as you get on stage to start vamping behind whoever's preaching or whoever's wrapping up the service. Don't feel like you have to immediately start playing the song, the invitation song. Be in the same key, obviously, if at all possible. But, you know, don't be afraid to just kind of, even without the piano, just rest on that a little bit. So yeah, just like that. Like I said, don't get too complicated, especially when you're underneath whoever's talking, because you don't want it to get super busy. You want them to still be on the forefront, but you providing the emotion, a little bit of the emotion and the transition mainly to get into the invitation. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you at the next one.